Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's section, we are going to discuss how we can write our own Docker file to create a custom image and to run a container out of that image to deploy the same applications. Now, those who don't know, or if you don't know what is Docker file, it's just a text document. It contains a series of steps that need to be followed in a sequence, and they're obviously achieved through a directive. Anything random there would not be read. It need to be mapped with the proper directive in order to get read it. And after that, you just have to use the Docker build command to build a new image out of that. And obviously your original Docker run command to create a container. Now, these are few of the directives which you can use to create your Docker file. Obviously, there's a big list and we are not going to discuss each and every directive because it might not be of our use, but still we would show you how many directives we can use. So here we are going to make a custom image that would help us to deploy Ansible in our environment. So I would create a simple file named Docker file. So any file with the same name would act as a Docker file. Just put it in a directory and build an image out of that. It's a normal text file. Just for sake of better coloring, we just use a Vim. Now, the first thing is here hashes would act as a normal hash or a normal comment, so that would not be read by building a new image. So okay, so the very first directive which we are going to use over here is the from directive. It actually helps us to select the base image which we want, from where we want to build our new image or from the scratch. So with this directive, actually it's going to take the latest image. If you want to use any particular image, like in our case, we want to use CentOS 7, you can put like that. But that would again hard code the stuff. So we can also use an argument with the directive arg that would actually help us to select a particular variable and the value according to that. So now you just simply have to call this variable like that. And again, it's now referring to CentOS 7. So anytime you have to build a new image, you just have to change this value over there. Now, the very second directive which we want to use is the run directive. And it actually helps us to execute commands. So whatever is running through the run directive would make a valid file system layer or the next file system layer in the image. So it's not good to merge everything in the same layer. It's better if we keep multiple layers so that every layer would have their own function. So in the first layer, we're going to install the EPEL release, and the second layer, we're going to install the Ansible package. Now, some other commands which may or may not be of your use, but if you are a bit aware about Ansible or normal Linux, this is actually going to first add a valid user to my system, and then it's making the permission, the ownership, and the group ownership set into the directory to the particular user. So these are again some valid commands which are running through the run thing. Now the next directive which we want to use over here is the user directive. And this directive selects us the user from where we want to perform the further steps. So the user is selected now. Now if you put a user in the username, now everything which is going further now would be performed with this user. So now we switch to a particular user. This is another directive. Now we can also select a particular directory, and that directive that can work for us is workdir. So it would help us in selecting a valid location and switching to that as well. So the workdir home Ansible user now simply means this user is now switched to this directory. So obviously, whatever permissions or whatever things you have to take care in advance, which you do for a normal system as well. Now, I have put some files like the inventory files and the configuration files in my system. So I simply want to copy that as well. I'm using two directives, add and copy. Both are doing similar work over here. They're just copying the things from my Docker file location to the image, the newly built image, but they have some valid and some bit of a difference. So I would let my viewers decide and comment on the comment section that what is the actual difference between an add and the copy. And if nothing would come, we would discuss that in the later sections. So these directives are going to help us to copy the files and to set anything more as well. Now, the very next directive, okay, just for the sake of documentation, let's just put the directive over here. So the next directive which we are going to discuss is the run directive, and or I would also use the endpoint directive over here. So that is the endpoint by which now your container is going to get ready. So which is, oh sorry, is the entry point. My bad. It's just not the endpoint, it's the entry point. So now which valid entry point you want to use when you are starting your container or when you want to log into your container. So, and run would be like with which command you want to run the container with. So when your container would start, what command it actually executes to keep its state running. So both again have a small of a difference, and I would let my viewers again read that thing and paste in the comment section what they found about that. So my entry point would be just a tail command, and a command for that would be to read this file. So this is just a continuously running program. So container would keep on running. The logs are there in the file. One thing we actually left is that this file is not yet created. So just take a run directive once again and just paste this, create that file. So one more typo, small typo. Okay, the file is now created. So, and it's not run, it's just CMD. So you have to be very careful while using the CMD because it cannot be run multiple times like the run directive. It can only be run only once. So you have to carefully choose exactly what point you want to run the command. So now everything is ready. The last thing, but not the least, is the stop signal. So that would actually let you decide what type of stop signal you want to do when you want to kill your container or stop your container. So we would go with the valid sig term, the default sig term basically. You can also use a 9 or something for the kill thing. So this is a valid stop signal, which we pasted like there. And the value is sig term. So this is how a small Docker file is being written, where it is taking an image, running some commands over that, creating some users, changing the ownership, switching the users, switching the directories, copying some files, creating some files, and then starting a container with a valid command. Now, I created two more files over here. So you notice the add or the copy directives are picking the files from here. So that only contains an ansible.cfg, a basic Ansible file, and just a basic inventory file for testing when we enter into the container. So now the Docker file is ready, and the command you want to use, we saw in the previous section, is Docker build. So from where you want to build, from the current directory, any tag you want to give to your image. So let's put like custom Ansible. So in which way this would create an image for you. So, okay, small error for us. Let's quickly see what's there. I believe we missed a dollar over there. After that, okay, no, let's go. So it should be sorted. So it would now create each and every file system layer according to the commands you provided. So it will run each and every of commands. You can see the execution like in the normal Linux system. So like normal system, whatever error visible on your system, it would again be displayed on the same image building time. So that's just a normal CentOS error for one of the missing repositories. So in this stage, you notice that start installing the Ansible, and there is a different file system layer. We would definitely see what all layers are built in that image. So it's now again installing some Python dependencies for the Ansible requirement. As of now, container is not ready. It's just building a new image for you according to your requirements. Now the package installation is complete. Now it would proceed for the next layer. And if any errors are there in writing the commands, that would going to halt the build process over there. So till now, everything looks good. Now it created a user for you. Again, setting the permissions for you, you may notice that it's creating and removing some intermediate containers that are being in the process, so that you not waste much of a size. And the valid entry point run and the stop signal. So the container is ready now. And this beautiful message means your container is ready. So if you remember the previous command, how to see the container, that is docker image ls. So that image took something like 568 MB image size. And now let's create a Docker out of a container out of that. So Docker run is the old command. Then just run that in detach mode. And the name, maybe we can provide a valid name to the container as well. And that is like, okay, so that's just a valid name for the container. And let's see. Okay, so image is created out of that. So quickly see if my container is running or not. So indeed, my container is running. So the container is ready. Now just quickly switch to the container and see if the things which we have deployed are already there or not. So the command would be docker exec. And just taking a terminal out of that, the name of the container, and with which command I want to log in. So just use a bash. So now I'm inside the container. You may see the uname of the container. And since we have not switched back the user, we are logged in the container with the Ansible user, which we build in the image. So very first thing is just check if my Ansible is working as expected. Oh, cool, it's working now. And it's making configuration file as well. So let's quickly see the configuration file. So yes, the configuration file is there. And if the file is also there, the inventory file, we would be able to see the valid inventory host as well. So just Ansible, mentioning the inventory file, and so we can see that the valid inventory hosts are also visible. So the container purpose is working fine on the new, the Ansible purpose is working fine on the new. So just a quick recap. We use from directive that help us to select the particular image which we want to use for customization. Then a run directive that help us to execute various commands. A user directive which can help us to identify or to switch a particular user. Then a work dir directive that help us to locate a particular directory and enter inside that. Add and a copy directive that help us to copy the files from the Docker file location inside your container. A command and an entry point that help us which command you want to execute when you are starting your container. And a stop signal that would eventually exit the container when it's provided. So that's all from our end in this section. And we hope you enjoyed it a lot. So thanks for being such a nice audience. Have a nice day and bye-bye.